Let's begin with breaking updates now coming in. The United States is all set to impose a 50% tariff on all the Brazilian imports starting the 1st of August. So the announcement has coming from the United States, and Brazil is going to face a tariff of 50%. That's the announcement that has come in from the United States. Remember, as of now, talks still ongoing with the United States, and in the latest, the announcement that has come in from the United States is a 50% tariff. Remember, Donald Trump has said that the BRICS nation are also going to be facing the brunt, saying BRICS is seen as an anti-US force and it will have to face an additional 10% tariff. So now the latest announcement that has come in from the United States is that Brazil imports will face 50% tariff. That's the announcement that has come in from the United States. In fact, we have more breaking updates now coming in. After the United States imposes 50% tariff on Brazil, Brazil has hit back at Trump, warning against the tariff. So remember, Donald Trump has said that if there is any retaliation, then the United States will also retaliate further. And now Brazil has said that if this is the tariff that will be imposed on us, then there will be a retaliation as well, warning against the US tariff threat. So 50% tariff is what has been announced by Donald Trump, after which Brazil has also responded to that. Brazil and United States escalating the row over President Donald Trump's support, even for Bolsonaro. In fact, my colleague Srinjoy Chaudhary is joining us on the broadcast with the details. Srinjoy, the United States, the president has been very clear that the BRICS nation will also face an additional 10% tariff. And now the announcement coming in that Brazil will face 50% tariff.
The 10% was really about de-dollarization, because President Trump believed that these BRICS countries, and let's not forget that Iran is one of the countries, and also China, were out to have a separate currency. Now, S. Jaishankar, External Affairs Minister, has made it clear that that is not so. But nevertheless, that 10% is still a threat. As far as Brazil is concerned, President Lula, who is left-leaning, and President Trump have not even met once. It's hard to believe that, but that is actually true. They have never met. And yet, President Lula has met Xi Jinping at least twice. So, apart from that, if there is a 50% tariff on Brazilian exports to America, the one lot of people who will be very upset will be American coffee drinkers. And there are millions of them, because the majority of American coffee comes from Brazil, because Brazil is the largest producer of coffee in the world. So that apart, there are other agricultural products that Brazil exports, also rubber and so on. But it is clearly a flashpoint, because Brazil's exports are huge to America, and a 50% tariff will, of course, hurt Brazil, but it will also hurt American taxpayers, American consumers, because Brazil's products are directly consumed. I mean, it's not a manufacturing input that Brazil sends. It is coffee. Now, coffee is something that goes directly to virtually every American every morning. So it will directly affect the American consumer. So that is something that will have to be worked out over the next few weeks.
All right, Srinjoy, do stay with us. Let's also take our viewers through the war of words that is taking place. And in fact, the response from Brazil that has come in as well. And here's what President Lula says in light of the public statement made by the United States President Donald Trump. And he is speaking about social media on the afternoon of Wednesday. It is important to highlight the following. Brazil is a sovereign nation with independent institutions and will not accept any form of tutelage. So accusing the U.S. President Donald Trump of looking down upon Brazil, he goes on to say the judicial proceedings against those those responsible for planning the coup fall exclusively under the jurisdiction of Brazil's judicial branch and as such are not subject to any interference or threats that could compromise the independence of the national institution. So he is talking about the charge that was leveled by Donald Trump. And then he says, in the context of digital platforms, Brazilian society rejects hateful content, racism, child pornography, scams, fraud and speeches against human rights and democratic freedom. So that's a response that has come in from Brazil after the letter came in from President Trump. But how is this going to play out is going to be very significant. And Srinjoy continues to stay live with us. And Srinjoy, a letter that had been written by Trump also made a mention of the former leader, Bolsonaro, and that has clearly escalated with Brazil.
Yes, Bolsonaro was more right-wing and was more favorable vis-a-vis President Trump. Now, Bolsonaro has committed some excesses. There is a coup attempt that is being talked about. So, which is why Bolsonaro currently faces legal proceedings. Now, this is what President Trump is unhappy about. But President Bolsonaro, when he was president, was actually criticized for at least one major issue, apart from some human rights violations. That was the attempt to destroy the Amazon. Now, that was causing enormous harm, and it was really ensuring more global warming. Now, that is something President Lula has tried to stop.
Okay.
But a little of that is still happening. But it was these human rights excesses, human rights violations that President Bolsonaro is being indicted for, is being charged with. And that is something President Trump does not seem to like.
Okay, all right. Stay with us. We have a response coming in from the U.S. President Donald Trump as well, as he has taken to social media again to make that